So everyone, today I'm going to do a review of both Cheers and Frasier because they're my favourite live action sitcoms that I enjoyed. Although I know that that Friends was confusing, I hated both Seinfeld and the Drew Carey Show, and there were lots of black sitcoms like Bernie Mac Show, and also Family Matters, and In Living Colour, Everybody Hates Chris, and The Wayans Brothers, and Sister Sister. And they mostly have the somewhat imaginative cousin Skeeter. I'd want to make a request to everyone who's seen both Cheers and Frasier. So I'm dedicating this review to both Robbie Coltrane and Kirstie Alley, because I know that they both died this year, because Robbie Coltrane appeared in Frasier and Kirstie Alley appeared in Cheers. So I'm not going to waste any damn time and tell you the story of Cheers. The plot is simple. At the centre of the show was the bar's bartending owner, Sam Malone, who was a former pitcher, is now a relief womanizer in what he's met with some assembled cast of a lot of white people who are involved in it. Although it was originally cancelled during the first season, although it was ranked amongst last on 74th out of 77 shows, it became a Nielsen ratings juggernaut in the United States, specifically because the show dealt with something very interesting. As it dealt with the first three main characters, these three main characters being Sam Malone, Carla Tortelli, and Norm Peterson, all voiced by Ted Danson, Rhea Perlman, and George Wendy. And also, in the first season, Cliff Calvin was originally a recurring character, would become a main character in season 2, voiced by John Ratzenberger. And early coach Pan Tuso is voiced by Nicholas Colasanto, originally appeared in only 3 seasons, but never came back in season 4. So that means the waitress originally had 5 seasons to appear, until she was absent from the 6th season. Meaning that Diane Chambers was portrayed by Shelley Long, Woody Boyd by Woody Harrelson, and also Rebecca Howie as I know Kirstie Alley portrayed Rebecca Howie as the owner manager, although Diane would make a comeback in the final episode of Cheers, and mostly Lilith Stern by BB Newirth. And I'm guessing that both Lilith and Frasier Crane, voiced by Kelsey Grammer, are psychiatrists because they're customers, like Norm and Cliff were customers, and Sam is the owner, Carla's the waitress, and also the bartender's always Ernie, and the insistent bartender was always Woody. Although Woody is a politician and an actor who had political views, and Diane is a graduate student, and Ernie was originally a coach, and Cliff was a mailman, and Norm was always the accountant host paid interior decorator, Carla's the mother, and Rebecca's always the businesswoman, and occasionally, I had no idea what the recurring characters would be like. They had a lot of celebrity appearances, and ever since Nicholas Colasanto's passing in 1985, they had Woody Harrelson to replace him, and I noticed the themes are mostly about alcohol, and it's about chauvinism, and promiscuity, and feminism, and first of all, this show is quite fun, but I noticed that Cheers is quite praised by critics. For they went from households to viewers for the span of 11 seasons and a total of 275 episodes, running from September 30th, 1982 to May 20th, 1983. Although the final episode of Cheers, which was ultimately titled what have I forgot? Ultimately titled One for the Road. One for the Road was basically the last episode, Cheers, that dealt with Frasier's departure from Cheers in what he's going to get his own show. However, Sam, discovers why he's shocked about missing out Frasier, and he's reunited with Diane, realizing they had admitted together to have no family of their own. Although Diane bids Sam farewell, but he stops her from leaving the convinces her to start their relationship for old times Pete's sake. Woody, who is now the cameraman, gave Norman a job to prove that Diane would go back to Los Angeles, while Frasier was already going back to Seattle. Since then, Frasier was only mentioned, meaning that Sam was forced to celebrate his reunion with Rebecca, whereas the dog just got the job, and he looks around the empty bar and says to himself, "I'm the luckiest son of a bitch on earth," before he tells someone who is Bob Broder knocking on his door, "Sorry, we're closed." And it felt like some sort of an extremely abrupt ending. It's already seen on the street at night. Sam was all alone. It felt like some sort of a terrible way to end a series. Yeah, I don't get it with the abrupt episode finale's ending. As well as they had to use the 50,000 seat Sky Dome as the excuse to let Canadians watch it. Only 50,000 Canadians watched it, and this managed to beat. There's something about the theme song called "Where Everybody Knows Your Name." That was from Cheers as well. That was released a month before that show happened. After Cheers came to an end, the ending of Cheers, where Sam is all alone and he misses Frasier so badly, is that it would set up the events for Frasier. Realizing it managed to beat the final episode of MASH by a landslide. So, what happened? In Frasier, following the events of One for the Road, Frasier Crane has returned to his hometown of Seattle, Washington, after his departure from Cheers. Despite this, he starts a new life as a single man, which has become challenged by his own family. This time he's forced to take in with his new father, Martin, who is a new character created for the series. Yeah, for some reason, he's voiced by John Mahoney. For some crazy reason, both Martin and Frasier aren't the only ones living in his house, who was a former cop who worked at a police department in Seattle, had some awful problems after he was almost shot and killed in the line of duty during a robbery. However, he reluctantly takes Martin in what they conduct a series of interviews as a physical physical therapist caregiver for his father. But his dismay gives him the hiring of Daphne Moon Crane, voiced by Jai Leaves, who is not to be confused with Daphne and Blake from Scooby-Doo, to take that position for themselves. Much of the series would focus on Frasier adjusting to living with his father, what they have little in common, in what they get a pet dog named Eddie for some reason, and they met his younger brother Niles Pierce, who is voiced by David Hyde Pierce. To make it more complicated, the chemistry between Niles and Daphne is quite interesting. That in the Drew Carey show, no one gets married. Everyone gets married, but in Frasier, no one gets married except for Niles and Daphne, because it pulled off the impossible of what the Drew Carey show couldn't do. Although Niles is attracted to Daphne, they get married. Although Frasier hosts a colon psychiatry show called The Dr. Frasier Crane Show, which is originally used as a working title for that show. They share a few commonalities with his best friend Rose Doyle and his friend, although she's quite directly sarcastic, but she gets pregnant with her daughter Alice. However, Rose and Frasier have a respect of their funny sense of humour over the time. They become close friends. But Frasier, along with the other characters, such as Catherine Navassa, were always at the local coffee shop. They always clashed with each other, and they had their unseen first wife, Maris. They had loads of crazy characters like Bulldog Briscoe, who is a womanizing, misogynistic idiot who works for the Gonzo Sports Show for the Seattle Seahawks. And we had Sherry Dempsey, who a flamboyant woman who tastes antagonism. Gil Chesterton, who is a camp critic. And also Noah, who is a Star Trek fan boy. And Kenny is always a station manager. And Baby Glazer is always the Lady Macbeth without a sincerity stereotype. Daphne's mother being Miss Moon. Kirby, not the video game that same name, is always Fraser's former best friend. And Alice is always Ross's daughter. For all the 11 years, it ended in 2004 on its final 2 episodes, Goodnight Seattle Parts 1 and 2. Although the show is set in Seattle, it's quite complicated that it had a lot of celebrities like Cheers had. And it's kind of complicated that if there was a revival series coming out, they're going to greenlit it sometime around this year. And there were only like 7 of those celebrities that died this year. There's 7 of them from Cheers and Frasier. I'd like to give the cultural impact of Frasier and special creativity. I love to see the show all over again. Maybe I should give this one an 8.5 out of 10 for both Frasier and Cheers. That's all I can say about this one.